Now, Mets Talk Live, we keep it raw. Sipping on Henny, we breaking the law. Queens represent, bitches know the name. New York Mets, we bringing the flame. So raise your glass, here's to the Mets. Ballin' harder than the rest, no regrets. City feel rockin', the vibe's electric. Ain't no stopping us, we getting hectic. Riding with the crew, we do it right. Mets in our soul, we ballin' all night. Queens to the core, we bringing the ruckus. Shout out to the fans, we live in the touch. Playoff dreams, we stacking the wins. Mets Talk Live, let the madness begin.
What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to Mets Talk Live right here on the channel. Hopefully everybody's enjoying their weekend as we are one day until the Super Bowl. If you care about the Super Bowl, obviously most people do. Probably don't care about teams at this point, but the Super Bowl is a Super Bowl. But the best thing about the Super Bowl is when it's over, it is baseball season and we get into spring training, and I'm excited. Everybody's excited. The Mets roster is basically almost set. We still got a lot to talk about with that because there is possibilities that can still happen, obviously through spring training, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Good news is that we're 4 days away until pitchers and catchers report to spring training. Obviously, there's already a few players over there. You see Brandon Sproat today pitching in Port St. Lucie. You saw obviously Brendan almost been there for like a week now. Other guys are going to start to be rolling in, and we're going to get all the news and rumors and all that fun stuff going on through spring training, which is always a fun time, and I cannot wait for baseball. This has been a very, very hard offseason. It's been a very good offseason for the New York Mets, but it's been long and drawn out. It's been frustrating at times. It's been exciting at times. The Mets started off with a bang by signing Juan Soto during the winter meetings, and then it dragged out through almost the entire offseason. And then it ended almost with Alonso, and the Mets might be looking at another starting pitcher. Are they going to get another bench guy? What are we going to look into when it comes to the lineup? And we're going to look at our guys that can possibly be playing second base on opening day, as I believe that there is one guy that we can be looking at, but you never know, especially in spring training. Things can happen. Injuries can happen. Somebody might really perform well and make the team. We will get into that as well. And the last thing that we're going to talk about is the upcoming shows for spring training and, of course, for the season, as I'll get into that in a little bit. So make sure you hit that like button, guys. And if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button, guys. And let's get started. So pitchers and catchers obviously report on February 12th. And that's when things really start heating up. The things are starting to really be, feeling like spring vibes. And that's what we're waiting for. I don't necessarily think we're going to get a lot of surprises in spring, to be quite honest with you. But pitchers and catchers, you always wonder what David Stearns is looking for, or the Mets are looking for, when it comes to who might, open up some eyes in spring training. It might take somebody's spot. If you look at the bullpen, there isn't much room in the bullpen. So somebody that might show a lot of, promise might not make the team, just based on the lack of availability on this roster. And if you look throughout the roster, there isn't a lot of availability. Some guys, it seems like the roster is basically full. Like, look at the starting rotation. Is there anybody that's going to surprise us? Brandon Sproat's not making the team. Unless there's a major injury and the Mets might have to use Brandon Sproat, I don't think it's going to happen. He's going to start at AAA. And, the rotation is set. The bullpen is basically set. And the lineup is basically set. The only position on this roster that you can really see that might be available is that super utility guy. And, right now it's Nick Magical. I still don't believe Acuna or Mauricio are going to be sitting on the bench as a super utility guy, right? Are the Mets still going to be on Jose Iglesias? We'll get into that in a little bit as well. But this is the first time in a while where the Mets don't have a lot of question marks, where you're like, all right, who's going to be playing this position? Who's going to be starting here? Who's going to be, back and forth, rotation-wise, position player-wise, even bullpen-wise. this has been a long time coming for me. I always complained for a while, and I complained during the offseason, during a lot of the hot stoves. I don't like to have a lot of question marks where there's a lot of unknowns player wise at positions that shouldn't be a question mark going into the season. With the New York Mets, left field is Nimmo, center field is Siri, right field is Juan Soto, third base is Mark Vientos, shortstop Lindor, second base right now is Jeff McNeil, Pete Alonso is first base, and Francisco Alvarez is the catcher. Right? We can have our conversations about second base, and you'll have your own preference on who's going to be the second baseman. But as of right now, Jeff McNeil is going to be your second baseman until he either fails, gets hurt. He's probably going to be the second baseman. Again, that doesn't excite a lot of people, but it is what it is at this point. And we'll get to that in a little bit later. But let's get to the news in regards to Dylan Cease. And John Heyman reported, a couple of other reporters have reported that the Padres are staying firm on their asking price for Dylan Cease. It kind of is a combination of Brandon Sproat and or Acuna or Williams. And obviously, Brandon Sproat seems like the only untouchable player prospect in their farm system at the moment. And I think it depends on package. I think, Brandon Sproat is not going to be on anything. The Mets clearly think that he has a ton of potential. They probably see him as a top line starting pitcher. And I agree with that. That's not a problem at all. I completely understand that. That is a pack for a rental. It's a little scary giving up, 2 top 3 prospects. That's a little worrisome, especially when it's a pitcher that the Mets have a lot of high hopes for. But why is this news coming out now? Why is there reports that the Padres are still having a high asking price, or what's been reported as a high asking price? Are these rumors starting to come out through the Mets? Are these rumors starting to come out through the Padres? Where are the reporters getting this information from? Because I think that's very important to talk about, because of the fact that if you really look at it, the Mets are clearly having conversations with the Padres, probably for a while. So it is very interesting to think, are the Padres leaking their asking price? Are the Mets asking their asking price? Because why are the Padres looking to trade Dylan Cease? It isn't because they want to get rid of him because they don't like him. They're trying to shed payroll. So the issue that a lot of teams, that's why, teams like the Cubs that were supposedly in on him, but also didn't like the price, and any other team, including the Mets, are like, we're not giving you that when we're taking on his entire salary. It's not a lot. It's like $13 million, almost $14 million, his salary for the 1 year, because they went through arbitration. The fact of the matter is that teams are not going to give up a king's ransom for Dylan Cease as a rental, because they are taking on the full close to $14 million of his salary for 2025. And he's a rental. So there's no guarantee he will be with the team or he will sign an extension. So that's the issue with the Padres, which it doesn't make sense. What I don't understand with the Padres, and this is not trying to get one over on the Padres or anything like that, I just don't understand. Yeah, zero. It's not $14 million is not a lot to eat, but it's not the Mets that probably don't want to do it. The issue is that the Padres are trading Dylan Cease because they want to shed payroll. $13 million or $14 million doesn't seem like a lot, but for a team that is going through their ownership issue, that there's still back and forth with family members with ownership, there's a lot of uncertainty there. And they've been trying to shed payroll. And they gotta, if they're serious about shedding payroll, they can't be asking for the sun and the moon at the same time. And I think that's where other teams, the Mets, the Cubs, and other teams that might be in on Dylan Cease was like, we're not giving you that when we're taking the entire money, when we're taking the contract. It just doesn't make sense. So I don't think the money is the issue for the Cubs, and I don't think it's for the Mets either. It's the asking price. Again, I don't think the Mets would mind giving up a Jet Williams and, I would say 2 top 10 prospects and another top 15 to 20 prospect I think they would do that. But they're out of their mind if they're going to want Jet Williams or Acuna with Brandon Sproat. That's not happening. So, and with Michael King, if that was still a possibility, which I still think it is. I know a lot of people don't think it is because of the arbitration situation and that he has a mutual option for the second year. That's just ammunition for another team that might be willing to do that. I don't think King is going to get traded now in the offseason. I think he's a perfect candidate for a trade deadline being on the market because of the fact that the teams would be willing to give up a decent price knowing that you're probably going to have him for the following year. With Dylan Cease, it just doesn't make sense what the Padres are doing. Like, yeah, they might be asking for the world, but at some point, and this is where I think is going to be very interesting, when spring training starts, when injuries start to happen, because they always do, right? Are the Padres waiting for that desperate team that loses one of their better starters, and now they're desperate and they're willing to give up that asking price? I don't think Stearns is not going to do that regardless. Sean Manaea can get hurt, God forbid. He's not traded for Dylan Cease if that's the asking price. So you would just... I would think the Mets would probably want to, and I see Zeros talking about it, about other players, not Machado, but like other players. Like it could be Luis Ariz, right? I know it doesn't fit well with the team anymore because, you got Jeff McNeil, you got Luis Acuna, you got Pete Alonso at first base now, so Ariz where's he going to play, right? But other players, right? Can you take a Cronenworth, off their hands and take that contract and, give a little bit less prospect-wise and also take on the money of Dylan Cease? Can you do that? That's a possibility as well. Can you take another contract that might be a bad contract for them and just take that contract along with Cease's contract and not have to give so much? So that is where I think the issue is with the Mets situation, the Padres situation, is that I don't think Dylan Cease is the lone guy in this trade. If the Mets are discussing anything, it has to be somebody else with Dylan Cease. Because if the Padres want to shed more payroll and that team is going to take that money on from the Padres, you're not getting Brandon Sproat and Luis Acuna or Brandon Sproat or Jet Williams. You're just not getting that. Now, you might get one of Acuna, one of Williams, and maybe another top 15 prospect. You're not getting much more than that from anybody. So are the Padres, they're in a weird situation because they probably want to try to win, but then you got the Dodgers in that division. The NL East is extremely tough. If the Padres are playing decently well and they're within a playoff spot or in a playoff spot, they're probably not going to trade their guys at the deadline. So are they willing to hold on to that money of their players on their roster that still is a hefty price for their payroll? Because all we've heard all offseason is that they're trying to shed payroll. So it's a weird scenario, right? Yeah, everybody can talk about Tatis, but Tatis wouldn't take a truckload of product. It really depends, right? What are they looking for? You can't, again, the Padres can't expect for a team to take on the money and give up a king's ransom prospect-wise. No team is going to do that. So they're going to have to either budge some way or another, right? Are they going to pay some of Dylan Cease's money so they can get a better package back, or they're going to take no money and get a lesser package back? They can't have it both ways, right? This was the problem, even though I didn't think it was such a big deal. Well, I did know it was a big deal with the Jarred Kelenic trade when it was Diaz and Cano, right? The reason why it was a stupid trade nobody would have been mad if they were trading their number one prospect and that's it. But you took on the Cano money, and because you took on the Cano money, you were able to get Diaz still under control for a couple of years as a closer. But you also took the money and gave you a top number one prospect. That shouldn't have happened. You should have gave a lesser prospect because you were taking on Cano's money. This is a very similar situation here. You're taking Dylan Cease's money And that should be enough not to ask for Sproat Acuna, Sproat Williams. That's just crazy to me. No, Paul. But again, if you go back to what was it, 2019, all the issues, or 20, yeah, it was 2019. The issues with the fact that you gave up your number one prospect and you took on the entire contract of Cano, right? You don't do that. Nobody does that. Again, that was Brody Van Wagenen just trying to get his clients here, and he was willing to do anything he can to do it, and that was an issue. And again, Jared Kelenic didn't turn into a great player, right? He was hanging on. He wasn't good with the Seattle Mariners. Then he ended up with the Braves. Was an okay player, solid. I would say average player, maybe slightly above, but nothing special. But you can't do that. Now, I don't see the match with Machado if that was the case, if the Mets were looking at that. Now, if the Mets didn't get Pete Alonso and they didn't sign him, then I could say, okay, you can get Machado, play him at third, move Mark Vientos to first base, and then you can work that out. You can take on that massive contract of Machado and Dylan Cease's contract, and you're basically probably not going to have to give up much at all. So that would be nice. That would be nice. But again, the Padres, the issue that I have with the reporters now is that things that we heard with Pete Alonso was way off over the last week prior to him signing. They weren't even close. Like these are like John Heyman said, oh, the Padres asking price is Sproat and Acuna or Sproat or Williams. When did they find that out? Did they find that out today or yesterday? And that could have been news that was a couple of weeks ago. That team, that was discussed later on. They can be negotiating whole new terms here and whole new packages at this point now. I think the reporters are a little bit behind on these stories, to be quite honest with you, because they haven't really lined up well at all. Pat Ragazzo, when we had him on the hot stove, he was great. But, he wasn't very confident that Pete Alonso was coming back. And you know what? He was technically right until Steve Cohen decided to take matters into his own hands and had a one-on-one conversation in Tampa with Pete Alonso. So, things happen quickly, right? Did John Heyman hear that the day he wrote that report? But this could have been something that was news a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, that finally, his little birdies told him. And that's where it is. And I think that's been the ongoing issue, especially with the Mets, because you never heard things like, oh, the Mets are in on this guy. Oh, the deal is closed. And then that's it. And then the deal happened, right? It's been, well, I don't know if the Mets are in on him. I don't know about that. And then, boom, this player gets signed, right? There was so much coverage with Juan Soto, so it was easy to figure that one out. So, sorry, guys. So, the Juan Soto thing was obvious. But the other things that happened, like the Frankie Montage trade came out of nowhere, even Sean Manaea, right? People were like, wow, the Mets aren't really talking to Sean Manaea. Well, they were talking to him the whole time, and then the deal happened. It's been a lot of, the AJ Minter move, the Stanek move came out of nowhere. And even Pete Alonso news, right? There were some rumblings that like, oh, it's not looking good. They turned down the 3-year deal. There's been a little bit more conversations, but not more. And then, reporters are starting to say that the Blue Jays, have an offer on the table. And then, boom, Pete Alonso, 2 years, $54 million. Like, it's crazy to me how, I'm not going to say wrong they've been, because they're not trying to be wrong. These reporters are trying to be right. But they kind of been a little off. And not purposely doing that. They're hearing what they're hearing. But they've been a little off a lot with the Mets this year. When they think, when you have no clue that they're in on somebody and the deal happens, you're like, where did this come from? So it's going to be very interesting. But the Dylan Cease, according to John Heyman, again, we don't know when this asking price was talked about or negotiated package-wise. This could have been a couple of weeks ago, and now reporters are starting to hear things about it. It could change in a week, in a day. I do wonder because you're still hearing, you're still hearing rumblings about Dylan Cease. I think Dylan Cease is going to be traded. No, I'm not saying necessarily to the Mets. I think Dylan Cease is going to be traded because I think the Padres do want to shed some payroll, and the easiest way to do that is Dylan Cease. So we'll see what happens. I'd love for the Mets to do it. That would put the cherry on top of the offseason. Right now, it's been a very solid offseason for the New York Mets. Right, started with Juan Soto. Right now, it ends with Alonso. You got Sean Manaea, Frankie Montas, Clay Holmes, AJ Minter, Ryan Stanek. That's a pretty damn good offseason, right? This was the Juan Soto, Pete Alonso offseason. The Mets did sign those guys. They brought back Manaea. They're bringing Montas and Clay Holmes in, hopefully trying to find some lightning in the bottle here with their pitching lab. And again, you trust Sean Manaea for the most part. If you get another one of these starters that step up and become a decent number two, if that's Senga, if that's Peterson, if that's Montas or Holmes, doesn't matter. If one of those guys can perform a lot better than what we were expecting, Peterson was pretty good, so I'm not going to go crazy with him, but it's a possibility. But if you get another guy to lean on in this rotation with Sean Manaea, now you got two guys that you can trust every fifth day, and I think that's important. But the good news now, with the Pete Alonso signing, with the Ryan Stanek, AJ Minter signing, and obviously the bullpen that we already have prior to those guys, you got a very damn good offense. Like I believe that this offense is top 2 in baseball behind the Dodgers. Like, that's how good they are, right? It's hard to find a better top 5 other than the Dodgers. It's pretty damn good. And all you need is a Francisco Alvarez, a bounce back, or a Jeff McNeil bounce back. And now you got 6 out of your 9 guys in your lineup that is dangerous. And not a lot of teams can say that. And I just hope that one of these guys step up. If it's Francisco, look, I think a lot of people would like to see Francisco Alvarez bounce back because he has the potential of being a 25, 30 home run guy because he does have a tremendous amount of power. You just hope that he reins it in. He knows what he did wrong last year. As long as he can harness it and figure out what he was doing wrong and actually put it on the field, who knows, right? He got a lot of talent. We all know that. We saw the potential 2 years ago. Right? I think he totally got off his way of hitting and the way he was approaching at the plate. That's something that we have to wait and see. But with Dylan Cease to end that topic, I think he's going to get traded in the rest of this offseason, maybe sometime in spring training. I don't know if it's going to be the Mets, but I feel like he's going to be gone. Let me just check the comments, guys. Well, Zero, yeah, I agree. Once the All-Star break came and went, McNeil started to play better, right? The injury clearly stopped him from doing what he was doing after the All-Star break. He looked like, what we thought Jeff McNeil would be a couple of years ago, what he would be now. Look, we don't need Jeff McNeil to be great here. He's going to be batting 7th or 8th in the lineup. You need him to be somewhat productive, right? What do you want from somebody at the bottom of the order? Right? You want somebody that can just get through the bottom of the order so you can get that top of the lineup back up, right? Jeff McNeil, I don't need to see home runs from you. I don't need to see a ton of RBIs. It'd be nice, but I'm not looking for that. I want a 290, 300 Jeff McNeil because you put the bat on the ball, you can cause havoc, right? Make the fielders make mistakes. Put the bat on the ball. That's why Jeff McNeil was so great. Right? He was hard to strike out. He had long at bats, and with his 300 average, he would get on base. That's what we need him to do. And if he can get back to that, it makes it just so much more better because he's probably going to bat in front of Jose Siri. And I know nobody's really excited about Jose Siri at the plate, but at the very least, the one thing that Jose Siri has as a batter is power. He is a 20 home run guy. He'll probably hit 20 to 25 home runs. Like, there's a real possibility of that for Jose Siri. So Jeff McNeil's job is to get on base in front of him. So he might lay into one, right? He's going to strike out a lot. His average is not going to be very good, but he will hit for some power, right? If you can get 20 home runs out of Jose Siri, batting ninth, with Jeff McNeil showing some signs of old Jeff McNeil and batting 280 to 300, that's just more of a threat at the bottom of your order. And then it turns over the lineup to the top of the order that we already know is dangerous. That's the important thing here. Again, you've been seeing all the news, all the reports and stuff like that. The Mets never had 330 home run guys in their lineup ever in their history. And there's a possibility, and I was looking at it, right? Francisco Lindor, Juan Soto, Mark Vientos, Pete Alonso. All four of those guys can hit 30 home runs. And that's not including the possibility of Brandon Nimmo, because Brandon Nimmo has been, if Brandon Nimmo could stay healthy, you might still see that power that he's been working on the last couple of years, where he's shown a lot more power. Now, I'd like him to cut down on strikeouts a little bit more, get that on base up. But, what did Brandon Nimmo hit? 24, 25 home runs last year? So he can be getting close to that 30 home run. But just think, the Mets can have four kind of easy 30 home run guys. And the possibility of Francisco Alvarez, with the potential power he has, can possibly hit 25 to 30. Like, the Mets can hit a ton of home runs, but it's not just about the home runs, right? If Brandon Nimmo goes back to his way, he's a 275, 280 hitter, right? Juan Soto, is a 285, 290 guy. Lindor is a 260, 270 guy, right? Mark Vientos showed that he can be a 280, 290 guy. Like, you're not just having home runs. You're having guys that are 270 and higher averages at the top of your lineup. Now, I think Pete Alonso, his career is a 250, 260 hitter, right? If he can get that to a 250, even 250, I'm not asking him 260, 270, right? Get to that 250 mark with the 35 to 40 home runs. It's insane how much better this lineup can be. The biggest issue last year was that the Mets struck out too much and they hardly put the bat on the ball. There's way too many guys that batted 215, 220, that their power was down, their on base was down, their strikeouts were up, their walks were up, slugging was down, OPS was down, right? This team can be so well-rounded that it'll be almost difficult. I have a pretty good feeling that the strikeouts for the Mets, that was extremely at the top of the league last year, is going to go way down, because that's why when people talk about Juan Soto, he's not worth $765 million. And yes, you look at the stats, you're like, well, he bats 280, he'll hit 30 home runs, 90 to 95 RBIs. That's not worth 765. But it's everything else that he does. The way he works a count, the way he plays with pitchers and sets them up, right? That doesn't only show what Juan Soto can do and how he helps a team, what other players see. Remember last year when Sean Manaea was just sitting on the bench and watching Chris Sale pitch, and he's like, wow, I think I can replicate that. I might not throw as hard as him, but I think the angle that he pitches can be deceiving. And sure enough, Sean Manaea changed his mechanics, and we saw what he did. Same thing goes for a guy on your team. The same way while he's on your team, there's other players that are saying, wow, look what he's doing here, right? Now you can get some pointers from Juan Soto. Right? Wow, look how he takes pitches. Look how he works pitchers, right? That can feed off other players as well, right? We know Juan Soto is not a great defender, right? He's not a great base runner, but he does so many other things better than everybody else that, yeah, he's not going to be, a great right fielder. We all know that, right? That's why you got Jose Siri to be the guy that can chase balls in the gap. You're not going to need Brandon Nimmo and Juan Soto to do that very often. So the ground that Juan Soto and Brandon Nimmo have to cover is a lot less with Jose Siri in center field. That's a huge deal. Yes, Ken, I know you don't like Juan Soto. You think he's a terrible player. I understand that. But again, he brings more to the table, right? The terrible Yankee team that we saw last year, a lot of that was Juan Soto. And we all know that. We all watched it in the postseason, right? Giancarlo Stanton was really damn good. But Juan Soto seemed to be always there in the middle when the Yankees were winning. Yeah, there's hitting, base stealing, and defense. Absolutely. But again, he brings a different presence to a team. No, Ken, he is an awesome hitter. Again, I'm not telling you that he's a great defender. That's not coming out of my mouth, right? But what's interesting, which is kind of a defensive stat. He thrown out the most amount of runners in baseball last year at bases. Like, for a guy that isn't great reading balls and, he ain't going to, flash any gold glove there, he actually has a very good arm. He throws runners out, which, obviously is important. Again, we had guys, right? Starlin Marte wasn't a great right fielder for the Mets. He had a ton of problems, right? We watched Lucas Duda play left field. We watched a lot of guys play left field, right? Defense, in my opinion, I love defense, right? Stearns is big on defense. But what Juan Soto does at the plate is so much more important because of what this team can be with the lineup. And again, there will be mishaps in right field. I'm counting on that. I feel like it's going to happen. But he's a very damn good ball player. We will see it, right? We watched it with the Nationals, right? He was much younger, but we see he's a clutch performer in the playoffs. Look, why do you think you get players like that? Those guys, you want guys that are clutch in the postseason. He provides that. Well, Ken, I don't know. The way you're talking, you would think, Soto should have went to the Braves, as bad as you talk about him. Might as well. Yeah, and listen, just like Yankee fans saying, oh, we don't need Juan Soto. You know what? When Cody Bellinger is batting .210 and not playing well, watch how fast they're going to be talking about, oh, look if we had Juan Soto, right? Juan Soto is gone from teams. Like, that's the thing. We got him away from teams that we might have to face when it matters the most, right? We don't want that at all. And that's the other thing. No, Ken, I'm not saying he's better than Babe Ruth. But even Babe Ruth wasn't as good as everybody thought he was either, right? He didn't play against the best of the best, right? But Betts, Acuna are far better. All around, yes. Absolutely. But you know what? We couldn't get Betts. We can't get Ronald Acuna. So you get the best next thing, and that's Juan Soto. And again, right? Juan Soto is damn good. Right? I'm not saying he's great at fielding and base running. Yes, it can be an issue. Absolutely. But he does the offensive side is so good that, like, there's guys like Mark Vientos was playing third base because the Mets hoping that his bat shows up, right? Nobody knew about his defense, and he played well. But Mark Vientos wasn't in the lineup because of his defense. It was in because of his bat. If you hit, they will find a position for you. We see that all the time, right? Tyrone Taylor wasn't a great hitter. He was in for his defensive purposes, but guess what? He was hitting better than Harrison Bader. So what are you going to do? You're going to put the better hitter in there. When you hit, they will find a position for you, regardless of your defense. You see it all around baseball. How many times guys that look like fools in the outfield play the outfield or play a position because they can hit? That's what happens. No, Ken, I don't think anybody's worth $760 million, to be quite honest with you. So, like, it is what it is. But you know what? When he hits a big home run, guess what? He's not going to care about that $760 million, right? He brings so much more to the table. And it's funny because the Nationals haven't been the same once they traded Juan Soto. The Yankees, we'll see, right? We'll see if Juan Soto was at, I mean, I believe Juan Soto was the reason why the Yankees got to the one had, because if you remember, Aaron Judge was terrible the first month and a half of the season. Juan Soto was carrying that team. And then when the postseason came, it was the John Carlos Juan Soto show when Aaron Judge was dropping balls in center field and, not doing anything with the bat. Okay, I hope you be rooting for him, right? We always have problems with players on our team, but doesn't mean we want them to do bad. I mean, you want to be a fan of a team. But, all right, let's go on to the next topic, guys. Do the Mets still want Jose Iglesias? Obviously, they do. They offered him a one-year deal. We don't know the exact number, but I don't think it's going to be more than $5 million. I think Iglesias is looking for a 2-year deal. I do not think the Mets are going to go there. But I would like Jose Iglesias back. Not because, again, I don't care about the OMG stuff. I really don't. I just think that he provides something in that clubhouse. And obviously, he's a great defender. So he'll be in late in games. I mean, can he hit well over 300 again? Yeah, sure, probably. But, what is he looking for, right? You hire Scott Boras, you're not looking for chump change here, right? If he had a really good season last year, he might be looking for a starting job. The Mets aren't going to give him that, clearly. So he's probably looking for more money. He might be looking for a 2-year deal, and he's probably looking for a starting position. Now, if all else fail, which is possible, maybe he'll come back to the Mets. But I think the Mets do want Jose Iglesias because the 1-year deal was after Nick Madrigal was signed. So, or at least that's what we heard. And he declined, and he said no. Again, I still think the Mets probably still want Jose Iglesias, but they're not going to overpay for a super utility guy. You're not going to spend $10 million for a guy on the bench. You're just not going to do it. And that's unfortunate because I would like to see Jose Iglesias back because of what he brings to the team. I think there's a dynamic in the clubhouse that he brings that, you could lose. Like, we don't know, right? We saw what was happening in the clubhouse prior to Jose Iglesias coming up. It was starting to, fold under the pressure. Like, nothing was, whatever Mendoza was trying to do at the time, and, everything the Mets tried to do wasn't working. And when Jose Iglesias walked into the clubhouse, it changed everything. So I hope he's back. I think he provides something to this clubhouse that I don't know if anybody else can bring. Now, maybe we're overreaching here, and it wasn't as big of a deal to last year, and people made it out to be that. But it seemed like Jose Iglesias was such a huge part of why the Mets turned things around, even though he wasn't the greatest player in the world, but he was damn good. And I would hate to lose that and hope that the vibes are still there, that the clubhouse is together. And just because you have talent, as we see with many teams, just because you have talent on paper doesn't mean that everything's going to work and they're going to gel and they're going to be a good team, right? How many times have we seen the Padres, who basically before the Dodgers were signing everybody, they look like the team of destiny and they can't get over the hump. So I do hope that we bring back Jose Iglesias because I think he brings what the Mets need, right? They need that super utility infielder that can play, short, second, and third at a moment's notice, can come in late for defensive purposes, can pinch hit if you need to. He probably is going to be the first guy off the bench, but if you need a guy that maybe will try to take a walk or put the bat on the ball, Jose Iglesias is your guy. So the lineup outlook, again, me and Chris on the hot stove the other day did our little lineups. I don't understand because I did a poll. Most people want Pete Alonso batting fourth, which is hilarious to me because all I've been hearing from Met fans is Pete Alonso doesn't have any protection in the lineup. So you're going to bat him behind everybody that should be given protection, right? Everybody's like, oh, bat him fourth. Why would you bat him fourth when all I heard for the last couple of seasons, especially last year, Pete Alonso has no protection? So why are you batting him fourth behind Juan Soto, behind Mark Vientos? That makes no sense. Who are you going to protect him with? Brandon Nimmo? You think people are going to pitch to Pete Alonso because they're afraid of Brandon Nimmo? Brandon Nimmo is good, but pitchers aren't going to not pitch or going to pitch to Pete Alonso and throw more strikes to Pete Alonso because of Brandon Nimmo. I'm sorry. It's so idiotic that Met fans for an entire year, especially on my channel and on our shows, saying Pete Alonso's never had protection, but you're going to bat him behind all the guys that can give him protection. It makes no sense. It makes no sense to me, right? Pete Alonso's not being protected if he's batting fourth. No matter who you bat fifth, Nimmo, Alvarez, whoever. That's not enough protection. We've seen Nimmo protect Pete Alonso. Wasn't very helpful. We've seen Alvarez behind Pete Alonso. We've seen JD Martinez. Those guys weren't helpful for Pete Alonso behind him. So why would you do that? Now, I do question. Now, I think Pete Alonso should be batting third. Now, I can understand why people might want to bat him second and then Juan Soto third and Vientos fourth. Any combination of that. At least you have a guy protecting Pete Alonso behind him, regardless of where you want to put Pete Alonso in the lineup, second or third. I don't like Pete Alonso batting second because until we know he isn't going to be striking out at a high rate, you're not helping Lindor in that case at all. And that's what I worry about. Yeah, Truman, I wish he was, right? Bregman seemed like a good fit when Pete Alonso was kind of off the table. Yeah, Kiki Hernandez as well. I don't know if the Mets are going to pay because obviously he's going to cost more than Jose Iglesias. So we'll see. Let's see. Well, Zero, that's the thing. Alonso, only over the last 2 seasons, his strikeout rate went really up. 2022 was really good. It was a lot lower. So I'm not going to go crazy there. But I'm not talking about, Pete Alonso. Well, Joel, that's the other thing too, right? People are like, oh, you know what? Bat Pete Alonso second and have Juan Soto bat third. Great. Okay, that seems fine, but why would they pitch to Pete Alonso if he's batting fourth, right? It just doesn't make sense. Like, he ain't going to get more fastballs because he's batting fourth and having Brandon Nimmo or Francisco Alvarez batting fifth. That's not going to scare anybody. They're going to work around Pete Alonso. They're going to try to make him swing at balls out of the strike zone. That it's going to be the same issue. So again, I don't see the point. I think Pete Alonso's perfect in the 3-hole because you can have Juan Soto 2 and Vientos 4. Now he has major protection in front of him and behind him. And I think that's a perfect spot for him. The 3-hole is perfect for him. I just don't understand the logic. Like, Met fans are killing me here. Like, the same people that said Pete Alonso needs protection wants to bat him in the same spot where he was never getting protection in the 5th spot, but now still ain't going to get protection in the 5th spot because you're batting him 4th. It makes no sense. Makes no sense at all. Yeah, Truman, I think that's stupid. I don't care if you're going to move Vientos to second or Soto third. It doesn't combat the Met fans continuing to say that Pete Alonso has no protection. You batted him fourth. He has no protection. A guy in front of you doesn't protect you. That was the whole idea, right? Here's the problem. We know Pete Alonso can't protect anybody. We know that for a fact. Lindor, Nimmo, both were in front of Pete Alonso for the last 2 seasons. And they had worse years than they did when they moved away in the lineup from Pete Alonso. Right? Nimmo was more successful out of that 3 spot in front of Pete Alonso. Lindor moved to leadoff and was tremendous. Well, you see, Chris, and that's the issue, right? I know you're not going crazy with the Pete Alonso protection. That's not why you're putting him fourth, right? Well, see, you want to put Vientos fifth. I don't know if the Mets are going to put Nimmo second. Like, I don't think they like him there. See, now if I truly believe that Mendoza would put Nimmo there, that would make so much. Then you have somebody protecting Pete Alonso. I don't know if they want to put Vientos out of the first two, 3, or 4. I don't think they want to take him away from there. I think they like him in that first 4 in the lineup. But I agree. That's where I agree with you. Nimmo is a perfect number 2 hitter. But if he's going to have high strikeouts, lower batting average, lower on base, then the 2-hole for Nimmo doesn't work anymore. Right? If everybody's seeing Nimmo as more of a home run guy and a run producer now, it doesn't suit him in his 2-hole. That's why Juan Soto suits in a 2-hole more, because he is a high on base guy, right? He'll bet you 280, 290. So that works for the 2-hole. Brandon Nimmo was always the perfect number 2 hitter for a while. I loved him batting second. But when your strikeouts go up, your on base goes down, and your average goes down, and now he tries to hit for more power and tries to be more of a run producer, that 2-hole really doesn't fit, because what Nimmo does better than anything else is what he used to do. Especially when you already got that power from Lindor, from Soto, from Vientos. You're getting that power from there, right? You obviously, the key to the game is score more runs. I want Nimmo on base for those guys that are hitting the bombs, that are the big run producers. Right? I'm not saying Nimmo can't do it, but him batting second kind of counteracts what the Mets, or what Nimmo is trying to do at this point now. So that's why it's fascinating, right? I think what's going to happen, Mendoza is going to start a lineup on opening day. I think he's very matchup oriented. We complained about that. Me and Chris complained about that during the pregame shows a lot of the times, where Mendoza went to matchups. You know, he did use his gut every now and then, but it was mostly matchups, and it kind of frustrated us at times. And obviously, Mendoza, it kind of worked out later in the year, but it seemed like they were going back to the well more often than not based on matchups, when your best lineup is what your best lineup should be, and you shouldn't be changing it for matchups. Now, if you want to change Winker and Marte at DH based on lefty-righty, that's understandable. You know, and that's the other thing too. You know, where is Winker going to go? He's going to be in that, or the DH role is going to be, even if it's Marte or Winker, are they going to be in that 6-7 spot? Or at times, if they think it's a good matchup, would Winker get the number 5 spot, or Marte the 5th spot in the lineup? And I do wonder what it's going to look like. But in my opinion, I don't think they're going to – I think they're going to start wherever you think Alonso's going to bat, or in the lineup. I think Juan Soto, because batting number 2 is his where he likes to bat the most in the lineup, I think they're not going to mess with that early. I think they're going to start Soto in the 2-hole behind Lindor, and then we can have a conversation about Alonso 3rd, Vientos 4th, or Alonso 4th, Vientos 3rd. I think they're going to start Juan Soto in the 2 spot. I think it's going to be Lindor, Soto, 1, 2. And again, we can have conversations about 3, 4, and 5. But I think because Juan Soto, a lot of his time in his career, batted second. That's where you've seen him the most. I do think they're going to start him second early on, at least the first couple of games. And obviously Mendoza loves it. He loves to change the lineup if things are not working. And If it's not working, he will change it. But I think he's going to start with the Lindor, Soto 1-2, and see how it works with the rest of the guys behind him. And if it's not working, they're going to change it up. Yeah, I understand that, Chris, when you say that there's a lot of ways to work around them. But Juan Soto, because of his take ability, because of his eye at the plate, he's going to get worked around a lot, regardless of where you put him in the lineup. But you know what? Let them work around, right? This is the whole point of finally having protection for Pete Alonso, where you have Juan Soto 2 and Vientos 4 and Alonso in that 3 spot, is that if Lindor gets on base, Juan Soto is going to, do what he does best. He's going to take a lot of pitches. He's going to work counts. And if they're going to work around him, this is the perfect scenario for Pete Alonso that never had that, according to a lot of Met fans. And obviously in his career. Pete Alonso is going to have a ton of opportunities with men on base because of what Lindor and Soto can do in front of him, right? This is what Pete Alonso was hoping for. This is why he took a 2-year deal with an opt-out after the first year, to get those opportunities. He would have those opportunities. I just feel like that's a perfect opportunity for him, right? If Pete Alonso fails, there's nobody else to blame anymore, right? I think if you do it early, give Pete Alonso, maybe he just goes crazy early on. It gives him a ton of confidence. Then you can play around with the batting order if you want to. But I feel like putting Pete Alonso fourth is putting him in the same spot that he was currently in for the last couple of seasons, because you're not protecting him anyway. Oh, yeah, CP, I agree with you. I think Pete Alonso is going to hit 40 home runs just because I just think that he just naturally can do it. But that's why batting fourth, look, the home runs are going to be there for Pete Alonso. The concerning thing is the high strikeouts and the average. That's the concerning part, because batting third or fourth, the home runs are nice. But again, when you got guys on base and your only production comes from the home run, now Pete Alonso should have 120 to 130 RBIs easily. But because of his average and his lack of putting the bat on the ball in runners in scoring position or runners on base, was the problem that he's had the last 2 seasons, specifically last year. And I think if he can lower his strikeouts and put that average up, you know what? Take that ball to the right center field gap, when we know Pete Alonso was great at that early on in his career. That's what I want to see more of. But we have to make sure that he can do it. Now, I think the home runs are going to be there for Pete Alonso. But if his RBIs only come on the home run ball, that's a lot of runners left on base if that average doesn't pick up. That's what I want to see from Pete Alonso. I'm not asking Pete Alonso to bat 270 here. If you bat 250, that's almost 40 points more than what he bat last year. That is more bat on the ball. That means with runners on base, he's probably going to get more RBIs just based on putting the bat on the ball. Getting a sac fly, that's not going to help with average, but putting the bat on the ball. Limit those strikeouts a little bit more. Bump that average up to 240, 250. That is huge when you're a 40 home run guy. But we saw the issues. You have 34 home runs and only 88 RBIs. That just shows you. And Chris, we talked about the numbers the other day on the hot stove. Those late game situations, those runners with scoring position, those 2 out RBIs and tie game numbers were absolutely embarrassing for Pete Alonso. We're upset because we know he can do it. That's the frustrating part. We've seen him do it, right? It wasn't just about home runs with Pete Alonso. That's the thing that people are forgetting. It wasn't just about the home runs. He hit those home runs while batting 260. That is huge. That's why he got to that 120 home run RBI plateau, because of the fact he was hitting 260. That's the point. You can't bat 212, hit 40 home runs, and tell me, oh, well, look at the numbers. Yeah, the numbers that he only got the RBIs based on home runs. Last time I checked, baseball isn't just hit a home run and that's how you get the RBIs. There's other parts of the game. And what Pete Alonso did so great, was so good at, 2022, 2019, specifically those 2 years. But even in 2021, when he had a down season, his average was still somewhat up. He was able to put the bat on the ball, right? He would take that ball the other way. He would get the base hit, drive in that run. Even not, you hurt your average, a little bit, but you get that sac fly. How many times that all we needed was a sac fly from Pete Alonso? We couldn't even get that. But I do expect the home runs to tick up because he's naturally a power hitter. But the beauty of Pete Alonso in years past was the average. Yeah, but Ken, again, the home runs, the problem with Pete Alonso was he was hitting the home runs, and a lot of them weren't very important when he was hitting those home runs. When your average is down tremendously, this isn't just a 10-point drop. When you're a 255 to 260 career hitter, which Pete Alonso is, and you bat 212, guess what? There's a huge problem there. Because easily, if Pete Alonso would have batted 240, 250 last year, he would have easily had 100 RBIs with the 34 home runs. That was the bigger issue. It wasn't the home runs. We know Pete Alonso can hit 40 home runs in his sleep. The concerning part was the drop in average, which the increased strikeouts. 20% more strikeouts. That's an issue. And I appreciate the fact that what Pete Alonso was so good at was that even when he wasn't hitting home runs, his sweet spot was hitting that ball to right center gap. And of course, with his power, he'll get those balls over the fence. But give me a base hit with a runner in scoring position, right? The issue is Pete Alonso did barely any of that, and if it wasn't a home run, he wasn't driving in those runs. When 85% of your RBIs were coming on home runs and nowhere else, that's a huge concern. Now, I'm hoping with the quote-unquote protection that everybody seems Pete Alonso needs, well, he has it now. And to bat him fourth with Juan Soto and Vientos in front of him is not causing any protection for him. It's not giving him any protection. Nimmo isn't going to protect him and not going to scare any pitchers away. Vientos and Soto will. Specifically Vientos, in my opinion, right? As good as Vientos was, it was clear that pitchers were afraid. Right? Pitchers wanted to pitch to Pete Alonso, but not Mark Vientos. Like, that's what it was last year. Yeah, Ken, and that's the issue. And I know Pete Alonso can be better with runners in scoring position. We've seen it. It's not like he's never done it in his career. Like, that's the issue that I had with him the most. And the runners in scoring position was the fact that he didn't put the bat on the ball enough, which is why his average was so down. And that's the issue. Yeah, but again, see, this is why I don't like OPS. I think OPS is a flawed stat. I truly believe it is. How can you can be an 821 hitter, OPS hitter, but bat 217? But yet you can have a 250 average, a little less home runs, and your OPS goes down. Right? That's why OPS is a silly number to me. Right? It doesn't tell the full story. That's why when people go overboard with all these other stats, you have to find something in the analytical part of the OPS plus, and all that other stuff. Average RBIs and home runs is going to tell you a lot about the player. We overanalyze way too much, and I think that's the issue, right? People are like, oh, well, he batted 821 OPS. Yeah, but he batted 217. Why do you think he only had 88 RBIs? He could have hit 230, and he probably would have probably 95, close to 100 RBIs. That is huge. Like, that is the thing. And, everybody comes up with these OPS stats. I know it's not major analytical stats here, right? But OPS is a flawed number. It actually is. Because a guy that can bat 275 and only hit 20 home runs is not going to have an 850 OPS. But that doesn't mean he's not a very good player. That doesn't mean that he isn't productive. And, there's a guy that can bat 290, hit 25 home runs, and hit 90 RBIs. Where do you get all those RBIs from? It's clearly not home runs, but his OPS might be 760. So it's silly to me, right? We saw what Pete Alonso's issue was last year. His issue was batting average. Now, because his power was down for what Alonso usually does, which is 38 to 40 home runs, when you hit 34 home runs and you only have 88 RBIs, the clear issue was bat to ball. He couldn't do that enough with runners on. That was it. Why a lot of Met fans were frustrated with Pete Alonso, because we've seen him do it before. We know he can bat 260. And I'm not even asking for 260. 245, 250 for a guy that can hit 40 home runs is tremendous, is a tremendous difference. If you don't believe 217 and 245 is a tremendous difference, it is. That is around 20 to 25 more hits, maybe even 30 more hits. If you get 20 to 25 more hits, that's clearly going to help you in the RBI department. It's going to make a tremendous difference for his season. No, Ken, I agree with you. Didn't help, but nobody was hitting. But even when guys started to hit around Pete Alonso, he was nowhere to be found in that department, unfortunately. But, right, again, we know Pete Alonso is going to hit the home runs. It's where else are you going to get those RBIs from if you don't hit a home run? That was a major flaw in Pete Alonso's offensive ability last year. Why it was so frustrating? Because Brandon Nimmo had 10 less home runs? Similar. What did Nimmo bat? I forgot, but let me check. I want to check really quick. Let me just pull up Brandon Nimmo's stats, and I want to tell you why OPS 1 is a flawed stat, and number 2, why you can see the issue. Right? Here's the thing. All right, this is why batting average is important, where people don't like it. Here we go. Brandon Nimmo batted 224 last year. Right? Pete Alonso was what? Let's see. Pete Alonso, I think he batted 212, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, sorry. That's wrong. So he batted 240. So kind of messes up my argument a little bit. But here's the thing. He batted 240, only 88 RBIs, and 34 home runs. While Brandon Nimmo batted 224 and had 90 RBIs. And Brandon Nimmo played less games than Pete Alonso. So what was the issue? The issue was the strikeouts and the lack of putting the bat on the ball enough with runners on base. So with Pete Alonso batting 240, which should have made him easily get to 100 RBIs. But again, when did those hits come? Most of the time, and again, Chris is perfect with these stats. I don't want to take away the time looking through my phone for it, but here's the thing. The fact is that Pete Alonso hitting that 240, and I would love to see the numbers, and I know Chris will figure it out, even if not tonight, sometime when we have another hot stove. Guarantee you, Pete Alonso had more hits with runners not on base, and probably why it hurt his RBI total. Because when you're batting under 200 and 205, 210 with runners on base and runners in scoring position, damn. So, again, the runners in scoring position and runners on base, Pete Alonso needs to put the bat on the ball more. It's just that simple. And I hope he can. Because I think Pete Alonso batting 260, 40 home runs, 110, 120 RBIs. That's the Pete Alonso we know, and that what you want, right? It's not only going to help the Mets, it's going to help him contract-wise after the season when he opts out. So let's go up to the next topic with Acuna, Mauricio, and McNeil. I know some people are fighting this, but Jeff McNeil is the starting second baseman until further notice. Jeff McNeil either has to get hurt. I don't even care if he has a bad spring. Now, I would care. I'd probably complain about it. But if Jeff McNeil has a bad spring, I don't think it's going to change the fact of the situation at second base of Acuna possibly being on the opening day roster. I don't believe that one bit. I think Jeff McNeil, similar to what happened with Brett Beatty and Vientos last year. Vientos clearly had the better spring, but Beatty still got the starting job at third base on opening day. So what I think is going to happen, similar to what Beatty and Vientos situation, Jeff McNeil is going to start at second base on opening day. He's probably going to get a couple of weeks, probably a month, probably the month of April. If he doesn't show signs of what we think Jeff McNeil can be, pretty good chance that Acuna is going to be up here. So that's just what I feel. Now, I think Jeff McNeil is going to surprise some people. I'm not going to say he's going to bat 330 and be 2022 Jeff McNeil, 2019 Jeff McNeil. I'm not going to say that. 2021 Jeff McNeil. But if we can see signs of what we've seen after the All-Star break last year, I have no problem with that. I have no problem. Jeff McNeil is not batting anywhere near the top of the lineup. He's going to be batting 7th or 8th somewhere. So if he can provide what we've seen after the deadline last year, after the All-Star break last year, I'll take that at the bottom of the order. So Jeff McNeil is going to be the starting second baseman on opening day. He's probably going to get a month to show what he can do. If he's not doing well, the Mets already shown you they'll bring up somebody to fill that spot. They will do that. But because Jeff McNeil is making the money, because he's going to be healthy, he's going to get the chance, regardless of what he does in spring. He's going to play second base. I know most people don't like that because Acuna is still, you've seen what Acuna can do in the little time that he played in September, or late August into September, and somewhat in the postseason. Understandable. I understand why people are pissed. But Jeff McNeil is just going to get the start. And hopefully he doesn't cost us games. But if he's playing bad, I think he's only going to get a month. And then Acuna is going to come up. Maybe Mauricio, whoever's probably having a better spring training. I think that's a possibility, and we'll see that then. So McNeil's probably going to get the starting gig on opening day. Well, Barry, McNeil's hot streak was brief, but it was brief because he got hurt. Remember, he got hit in the hand. And I think it was against the Yankees, if I'm not mistaken. He got hit in the hand, and he got messed up. His hand was messed up. And he was out for a long period of time. So he was just starting to figure it out, at least a little bit. And then he got hit by a pitch and messed up his hand, and he was out for, 2 months, month and a half. So, again, it's hard to judge that brief period and say, he might have been good the rest of the way. We don't know that, obviously. But we've seen him do it. Yes, Dan, here's the problem with that. If Jeff McNeil is healthy, he's playing second base, at least to start the season. Luis Ronald Acuna, he's not going to sit on the bench. And you're not sitting Jeff McNeil on the bench until he proves that he can't do it and start. You're not sitting Acuna on the bench when the season starts when Jeff McNeil is healthy. It's just not happening. They want at-bats for Acuna. To get most at-bats for Acuna right now is starting the minor leagues. And again, people forget this. McNeil is a perfect David Stearns guy. You know why? Now, is Jeff McNeil a great defensive player? No, but he's solid at almost all the positions he plays. And why David Stearns likes him, and probably why, even if Jeff McNeil was had value in the trade market, I don't think David Stearns would trade him. And I'm going to tell you why. David Stearns likes players like Jeff McNeil. You know why? He could play second. In an emergency, he could probably play third. He could play right field. He can play left field. Versatility is what David Stearns loves. It's just a fact. And that's why guys like Vientos, guys like Jeff McNeil, guys like Brandon Nimmo, guys like Jose Siri, Tyrone Taylor, they can play multiple positions. You're going to be you're going to be on the good side of David Stearns until you prove yourself that you can't. And that's where the issue is with the situation with Jeff McNeil and Luisano Acuna. So that's why he's valuable still in David Stearns' eyes. We haven't seen a good Jeff McNeil in a couple of years, but we don't know if it's just was it the shift? Was he injured? Was he trying to change his approach? Was he trying to become more of a home run hitter? We know that was a big issue with a lot of players, right? Everybody was hitting more home runs. Their average went down. We know McNeil with the launch angle situation, if he goes back to just being that slap hitter, hitting the ball through the hole, can he be the Jeff McNeil old or close to it? That's why I think McNeil is going to get the starting gig first. Now, I don't think Acuna is far behind, or even Mauricio for that matter. Most likely Acuna. If Jeff McNeil fails offensively, I don't think they would hesitate and bring Acuna up and throw McNeil on the bench. But you're not going to start the season with McNeil on the bench. You're just not going to do it. You want to get Jeff McNeil going. That's the other thing, too. People forget this, right? If you start Acuna on opening day, you already exiled Jeff McNeil to the bench. Why do you need to do that when you can just give Jeff McNeil the starting role, see if he shows us something? Because if Jeff McNeil shows us close to what he was, you know how much of an asset that is to this team? Now, I know Acuna could provide the energy and be just as good, if not better. But don't exile Jeff McNeil yet until you absolutely have to. Yeah, Richard, and that's the thing. If McNeil doesn't perform, he will be replaced with Acuna or somebody else. Right? He got replaced by Jose Iglesias last year because he was terrible. So we've seen David Stearns do it for another super utility guy that Jose Iglesias clearly took the job. So they're willing to sit McNeil on the bench. But that was after he wasn't performing. If McNeil performs, or at least close, shows something, he's going to start. Unless he's a complete disaster, he's going to start. So don't be surprised if McNeil gets to start and get an opening day. Yeah, John, I understand, but I'm not telling Jeff McNeil to hit 310. But if he can hit 270, 280, that is a big jump. That is huge at the bottom of the order, especially, like I said earlier, with Jose Siri probably batting behind him. Jose Siri, again, average is not going to be there. He's going to strike out a lot. But if you get Jeff McNeil to get on base a little bit more at the bottom of the order, get that average up 260, 270, not 220, 230, but get him putting the bat on the ball a little bit more, working the counts like Jeff McNeil used to do, get on base for a guy like Jose Siri at the bottom of the order, batting ninth, because he can jack one over the wall and turn that top of the lineup over, turn the lineup over, right? Because, again, Siri does have power. He is a 20 home run guy. Again, it might not excite everybody because he has a low average and strikes out a lot, but the key to the bottom of the order is do what you can to turn that lineup over to the top of the order. That is the goal. And if you can hit some home runs over the wall with Jeff McNeil getting on base a little more in front of Jose Siri, perfect. but let's see it happen. And if it doesn't, there will be changes. Mendoza and Stearns wasn't afraid last year to make changes when things weren't going well. And I expect them to do that. So we will see. All right, guys. So last but not least is I'm going to talk about the upcoming shows. We all know about the hot stove. We'll probably do a hot stove tomorrow. I'll talk to Chris about that. If not, I'm going to post a video tomorrow in regards to the Dylan Cease situation and what the asking price could be or what the price is, or most likely is reported for the Padres to the land Dylan Cease to the Mets, and what I think can be a very, very fair offer for Dylan Cease that can entice the Padres to send Dylan Cease to the New York Mets. But upcoming shows, the Mets pregame show, the Amazing Mets pregame show with me and Chris, started off slow during the season, but it started to get very popular from the early All-Star break, or before the All-Star break until the end of the season. It took off. It was a huge success, and obviously we're going to bring it back with some new looks, new backgrounds, new logo, all that fun stuff for the pregame show. And of course, we're going to be doing a postgame show as we did later in the year last year and into the playoffs. New logo, new background, all new graphics and all that for the post-game show and the pregame show that is obviously going to start on day one on opening day. Now, just to let everybody know, I will be in Houston for the opening series for the first 3 games of the year on that Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So, I have a friend, and you guys know Grant from the chat. Been a member for a long time, been a subscriber from almost day one of the channel. He runs a couple of bars in downtown Houston, right around the area of what's it called? Talkin Park now, whatever it's called. Minute Maid Park. Let's just go with that. So I'm probably going to do the pregame show from the bar, from Grant's bar. That's what I'm hoping for. If not, I might have to figure something out in the hotel, because I'm staying at a hotel that's very close to the park. So it's walking distance. So it's not going to be late to the game or anything like that. But if I'm doing it at the hotel, I'm probably going to do the pregame a little much earlier than when the game's supposed to. So if the game's at, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock Eastern time, 2 o'clock, Central time, in Texas, so it's an hour difference. I probably have to do it a few hours before, just so I can, do the pregame show and then head to the game. But if it's at the bar is basically right across the street. So, with the pregame show, I'm going to be with the pregame and postgame show. The postgame show, I'm not sure how we're going to handle that. Maybe Chris has got to do it solo until I get back to the hotel or to the bar, or do it on my phone while I'm walking out of the stadium. Who knows, right? It's obviously reception, Wi-Fi, got to have a good connection. So be wary of that. But the upcoming shows, the pregame show, new logo, new look, we're bringing that back. The postgame show, new logo, new look, we're bringing that back for 2025. And of course, we're going to have, again, if you're going to become a member of the channel, of my channel, it's going to get a whole new upgrade. It's going to be one membership price instead of the 2 different membership prices that are currently on the membership list. It's going to be one membership price. You're going to be doing giveaways. I'm going to be doing giveaways, monthly giveaways, a video for members once a month, basically weekly shows for the members, just to recap the week for the New York Mets, the games they play and all that. Gonna get all new channel icons, channel stickers, and channel emojis that seem to be popular with every member, and probably some other things throughout the year as well. So if you want to become a member, look out for the new membership. Don't do the memberships yet, guys, because I'm going to be changing it around. I don't want anybody to feel like, hey, I was paying this, but now I'm paying that. I'm going to do a new membership, one price, and you're going to get all that as well. So look out for that over the next week or two. I was supposed to do it over this week, but it's been crazy. But I'm trying to get it done over the next couple of days, and then you'll see, and I'll let you guys know. So pregame show coming up, postgame show coming up. Me and Chris are going to be doing a roster projection show right before the first game of spring training, and a few days, if not the day before opening day of 2025. We're going to do a season preview just like we did last year. We're going to give our win totals, going to give our potential lineup, and we're going to just do everything else we did on the season preview last year. We're going to do this year for the 2025 season. So with that said, guys, I want to thank you for watching another Mets Talk Live right here on the channel. Make sure you hit that like button, guys, before you go. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button, guys. Follow me on X at TMWRNYM, and continue to follow the Hot Stove on X as well, as we're creeping closer to the end of the Hot Stove period. But that X account, NYM Hot Stove, is going to be active, and there will be a pre-game show account on X as well. So with that said, guys, everybody have a good night. Let's go Mets, and I'll see you next time on the channel, guys. Have a good night, and let's go Mets. Enjoy the Super Bowl.
City lights in the dead of night, full of echo. Concrete jungle, dreams bust to grow. Mets in the air, chase glory, no fear. Broken backs, but hearts steer clear. OMG, the chaos, what a scene. Streets buzzing like a machine.